Hey guys, what's up? Today I'll review 10 great hidden gems, all of them indie RPGs I strongly recommend. Most of these are amongst my all-time favorites, but they're all still pretty obscure, unlike some of the most popular out there. So with that said, let's begin! Number 10, Fallen Legion. Opening the list, we've got this little experiment from an Indonesian studio. It was released as 2 games, but in reality they were just one and the same, except each had a different protagonist. I played the PS5 and PS Vita versions, but these games everywhere nowadays. You control either Cecile or Landon, fighting each other to decide the fate of the kingdom. A kingdom in the middle of a war and a possible apocalypse led by dark forces. So it's a dark fantasy setting, and it shows in its incredible storytelling. Despite having an overworld map and traditional gameplay, as in you go from town to town, it's very different. Basically, you beat several stages before you get to the next town or castle where you'll talk to people and make decisions. Different routes and endings are presented by these decisions, which you actually also make during the stages. In those, they appear within a timer and you have to decide fast, which makes the storytelling literally a part of the gameplay. Yes, it sounds stressful, and yes, it is, but it won't ever get you stuck or anything. These decisions also may grant different buffs to you and your party. The character you selected acts as the summoner, and if they die, it's game over. Up to 3 warriors can be controlled by the action buttons, and you have to click on them to create different combos or death blows, which are their skills. Everyone, however, has an action points bar, and it is used to either attack or guard. So in a nutshell, this is a hybrid between action and turn-based, but it's mostly action since everything happens on real time. The music is incredible in this game, full of absolute bangers. Overall, the game's intense, very difficult and exhausting as well, so be sure to play no more than an hour or 2 at a time. It will grind your thumbs down, and I mean it, thanks to all the button mashing. There's also a sequel called Revenants, but I'm not sure if I can recommend it. Number 9, Dusk Diver. A Taiwanese action RPG is Dusk Diver, available on PS4, Switch, and Steam. It takes place in the city of Ximending, and you play as Yumo, a convenience store worker who one day is granted powers to fight monsters. These monsters appear in a different dimension within the city, and they're trying to break the boundaries between both, so it's your job to stop them. Yumo will fight in a 3D beat-em-up style with different combos and skills. Stages will gradually get longer with a few puzzles here and there, always ending with a boss. You can grab around health and money and of course gain experience to level up her skills. Once her burst bar has been filled up, Yumo can transform temporarily to do massive damage to her enemies. This is badass and it helps you out of very tricky situations. Now, you have no party members per se, instead you can summon them to execute a few skills here and there. It's pretty cool. The music is fantastic here, and with several themes matching up greatly with the stages and the boss fights. There may be some small frame drops or resolution drops sometimes, but nothing preoccupying. Anyway, in town you can go around the different streets and shops to buy meals for extra buffs in battle, but you'll also have to find different keys to unlock the next stage every time. The NPC interaction is bare bones, but at least it's there to refresh you from all the fighting. It's a great action RPG. Again, this one also has a sequel and a direct one actually, but again, I don't think I can recommend it. Number 8, Grand Guilds. This is a grid-based strategy RPG by a very small studio from the Philippines. Eliza belongs to a guild that gets involved in a war led by a vicious sect. So she and her allies will go around different places in their ship to seek and expose the truth. It's got some dark fantasy elements to it, and the narrative is also quite dark, edgy, and very well written. Eliza herself gets some very intense character development here. Gameplay-wise, you'll have a super small overworld and visit different locations to watch some scenes and then fight battles. Only 3 characters of your roster can be controlled, moving on grids, but you do everything with cards bound by action points, including movement. Some of them cost more than others, and they go from different offensive skills to defensive, to buffs, debuffs, and healing. I'll admit it doesn't have the best interface, so some frame drops will be experienced often, but it's a low-budget RPG, man, give it a break. It's a challenging game, but it never gets ridiculous or anything. As you make progress, you will unlock more cards and earn passive skills. Everything can be arranged in the menus, like which cards to take in you with your deck for every battle, and which skills to equip, of course. The music is fine here, but it honestly doesn't stand out. This is a game you'll play for its rich story and engaging combat. It's everywhere nowadays, but I recommend staying away from the Switch version, which has game-breaking bugs and glitches. All the other versions are fine. Number 7. Rise Eterna. This one may look really low budget, and yeah, it kinda is, but its developers were aiming for 8-bit graphics with great 2D art style and 16-bit graphics for the battle animations. If you haven't noticed this is a strategy RPG, then something's wrong with your eyes, so get them checked ASAP. Some evil mercenaries invade Lua's town and kill everyone but her, so she kills all of them in revenge. Yup. So the only survivor teams up with her in a quest to find her missing adopted sisters and prevent a possible war. Don't cringe, the story gets very good as you advance, and I mean it. So you'll visit different towns on the way, but in menus, like in most tactical RPGs. No different routes and endings, but you can get a few extra allies if you do specific things. Read a guide for that. Maps are large and may come with several hazards like traps, but also items and food. I'll explain that in a bit. The rest is your average Fire Emblem mechanics, as in moving on grids, watching 2D animations when characters fight, and rely on the RNG god to succeed. I love these animations, by the way. The pixel art looks beautiful. Sometimes an ally can act as support if they're nearby, by the way. This is a hard game, but it can be broken easily with characters like Lua. Now, you don't level up the normal way here like in Fire Emblem, instead you use points to increase abilities in the menu. Yeah, it's a unique approach to the leveling system, I'd say, and the food and items I mentioned, they're used to create stuff like healing potions, buffs, debuffs, etc., since you can't buy them. This is a great game that's very often on sale on most modern platforms, and I'm still waiting for a direct sequel that may or may not happen someday. A spin-off was released, but I haven't played it. Number 6. Asria Ascending. French-Canadian studio made this game, who got Kazushige Nojima for the script and Hitoshi Sakimoto for the music. Wow. It, however, met a very mixed reception because of its brutal lack of balance. But if you play this game on easy, which feels like a true normal mode, you'll be fine. It takes place in a beautiful world with beautiful graphics, with different races living on it, but the balance between them might break thanks to the monsters known as the Noise, who keep attacking the cities. 8 demigods are sent to stop them, and you have them all since the beginning of the game. Eventually, they start realizing that their multicultural and diverse world makes no freaking sense. Anyway, you control Ulan, the leader of the group, in gorgeous 2D environments and art style a bit similar to that of Vanillaware Studio. Often you'll visit small cities to rid them of the noise, but you'll always return to the capital and base of operations. So in the dungeons, Ulan will move around side-scrolling stages and platforms, with many different puzzles to solve. Some of them are pretty hard, let me warn you. You can see the enemies on the screen and choose to fight them if you want to. Battles will be played in turns with an interchangeable party of 4 against enemies with elemental strengths and weaknesses. It's simple yet engaging, so there was really no need to make it stupidly hard in the first place. But like I said, easy and very easy modes are there, and considering the difficulty is objectively bad here, you shouldn't be ashamed by using them. Actually, by doing so, you'll be able to appreciate this great game as much as I did. It's available on all modern platforms. Number 5. Mato Anomalies. This Chinese game doesn't feel indie once you see it and play it, but surprisingly it is. It takes place in a dystopia where the government and their AI police control everything. But at the same time, there are bizarre dimensions trying to merge with reality as a result. You control 2 protagonists here, Doe and Graham. Doe is a private investigator connected with the crime world, so he takes on the job to investigate what's going on by going around different districts and talking to people. He'll also do all the shopping needed for battle and exploration, but he won't go to the dimensions known as layers here. Instead, he'll sometimes have to break inside the minds of his suspects by playing a turn-based battle with cards. It's a really deep and complex system that's way too difficult. Because of this, the developers added the options to attempt each battle a few times and then skip them without any consequence. You have a few action points per turn and each card costs 1 or 2 to use, same for the enemy. It's up to you to attack their cards, to reduce their stats, or to attack them directly. Anyway, so since Doe won't go to the layers, the other protagonist will. Graham and his party, a group of disjointed anti-hero characters, will explore different sci-fi labyrinths, solve puzzles, and fight stationary enemies to advance. Most battles are mandatory, others are there guarding treasure chests. In battle, everyone shares the same HP and MP bar, making the game extremely difficult, but also quite unique and engaging. Each character has their own skills and regular attacks, however, all skills have a cooldown, so keep that in mind. Overall, it's a great game with tons of personality, beautiful visuals, and excellent music varying in different genres. Too bad the story has some Yuri bullshit in it and some stupid modern remarks that I don't know if they were written that way or the localization team butchered. Nothing too political, thankfully. Available on all modern systems. Number 4. Sword of the Vagrant. 2D action RPG here, literally a love letter to the Vanillaware games like Odin Sphere and Muramasa, but also with some Metroidvania exploration, we'll get to that. A dark and edgy story about a sellsword named Vivian, tormented by the death of her family. She finds out her father might still be alive though, but during her investigation, an evil witch forces her into a pact to do her bidding. Yeah, you've noticed the exaggerated fan service. But being a fan of Vanillaware, it shouldn't surprise you. It's great, just as great as its backgrounds, all part of the overly beautiful graphics. Towns will be there once you find them after going through different ruins, forests, etc. You can access different shops, but it's always better to save enough money to combine or upgrade the many different weapons and armor you'll find throughout the game. Vivian is the only playable character and she fights in a hack and slash combat. The controls feel fine, moving, jumping, doing combos, it's great! You'll find a crap ton of treasure and items during your explorations, especially if you go through the many different areas. This is where the Metroidvania elements come into play. You'll have to find a way to proceed to the boss by going back and forth. And yes, the boss fights are friggin' epic, challenging, often very creative in what you need to do to defeat them. This is an awesome game that I'm sad didn't get more attention. It's available on all modern platforms. Number 3. Banner of the Maid. From an indie Chinese studio comes this misunderstood game. I say that because Maid means something very different nowadays than what it used to. It's got nothing to do with modern day anime maids, okay? It's about Pauline Bonaparte, sister to Napoleon Bonaparte, leading an army during the French Revolution. So it's based on historical facts, but of course mixing fiction. Pauline did exist, but she was never a soldier. More fictitious though is the delicious fan service within the art style the studio created for us men of culture. But the story is serious with interesting twists and turns and a few different routes depending on your choices. You also have a system in which your actions and decisions may get you points with the different factions involved in the game. This unlocks different events and side quests, but they don't alter the ending. The maps are relatively small but get longer as you advance. They play in an isometric view with very small sprites. Every unit is basically a commander of a small platoon that they order to fire when they attack an enemy or counterattack it. These cool animations play out when that happens, but you can turn them off if you want to. Commanders can take with them a few healing items and weapons, but weapons break, though they only break for that mission and are magically restored for the next one. There's a class system here, and characters class up after certain conditions are met, but you cannot change their class, and since one is stronger to the other, it accompanies the rock paper scissors mechanic the game has. It's an incredibly good RPG, quite addicting, balanced but challenging at the same time. I strongly recommend it. Another game available everywhere nowadays. Number 2, Frontier Hunter, Ersa's Wheel of Fortune. This super beautiful 2D action RPG also combines Metroidvania elements, a sci-fi adventure where you control Ersa, who's part of a crew investigating other planets, so they land on one and Ersa finds out her mother might be alive and somewhere, and so starts the plot. It's a decent story even though it's overtaken by fan service and silly comedy every now and then. 2 more girls will join in and you'll be able to switch between them at any given time. I love how this game makes fun of stupid gender politics with this little scene, which earned my respect immediately. Anyway, as I mentioned, it's basically a Metroidvania RPG, so you'll go around different areas and backtracking a lot, platforming involved. Yeah, it plays like a Metroidvania game. The girls will have different moves and control differently, each being able to use 2 out of 3 unique weapons at a time. However, skills are found in treasure chests for some reason, or by defeating bosses, not by leveling up, but you do gain regular experience, level up and grind. It's a challenging game, so grinding will be required every now and then, but the controls, the combat and the overall movement, platform included, feels freaking awesome! It's by far the best indie action RPG I've played, thanks to this alone! And of course the boss fights are epic, some of them quite brutal, but it helps that you can switch between the girls at any time, or even summon them to fight by your side for a few seconds. Oh, and by the way, you got limited inventory here, which means limited healing potions. Finally, the equipment system is weird as you can attach these grids with different stat increases and buffs to weapons, armor, and even accessories. You'll get a crap ton of these, so you'll have to decide which ones fit your combat style best. You can also upgrade and combine stuff with the required materials and use meals to temporarily buff your characters. This is an excellent game and I cannot recommend it enough, but for now it's only on PS4, PS5 and Steam. No Switch release yet. Number 1, Cosmic Star Heroine. So this is my favorite indie RPG of all time, developed by American studio Zeboyd Games. A cool sci-fi adventure with tons of personality and a mind-blowing soundtrack. You take on the role of Alisa, an agent of an intergalactic intelligence organization. How's that sound, huh? So she's fighting a bunch of terrorists. She and her team will be sent to different planets to complete a variety of missions. The story's great and the characters are very interesting, but I wish there could have been a little bit more development for them. The graphics are 16-bit glory, full of detail and well-implemented colors. I already praised its impressive music. The traditional style of gameplay will definitely transport gamers into classic RPGs of the 90s. No random encounters exist though, and the exploration is very inviting, just to see what crazy things you see in the next area, because each planet is very thematic and quite appealing. But the battle system is really unique here. Everyone has a different set of skills that they'll learn as you advance, but there's no NP system. Instead, you equip up to 7 skills and most of them can only be used once per battle, unless you spend a turn guarding, which makes all used skills available again. Characters also gain a hyperstat after meeting certain conditions that are unique to them, making their attacks more powerful or guaranteed criticals. Similar to this, everyone has a style, and it keeps increasing the more actions they execute, also leading to more damage. This is simply an awesome game, excellent in every single area, which makes me wish it could have been longer. Available on all modern platforms, this is an absolute must-play.